In a world where everyone seems to be shouting about their goals, their wins, their plans, there's something powerful about the person who stays quiet, the one who doesn't post every achievement, the one who doesn't talk about what they're going to do, the one who just does it. That kind of person understands something most people don't, that success isn't a performance, it's a process. You don't build a skyscraper by talking about how tall it will be. You build it by laying one brick at a time, deep in the dirt where nobody's watching. And before anyone sees the height of it, you've already spent months, sometimes years, working on the foundation out of sight, in silence. The same is true for any kind of real success. Whether you're building a business, chasing a career goal, becoming an artist, transforming your body, or mastering a skill, the real work happens far away from attention. The real work is quiet. It's personal, it's internal, and it takes place when the camera's off and the world's not clapping for you. We've been conditioned by social media and modern culture to equate visibility with value. To think that if people see it, it matters more. That the more you announce, the more you accomplish. But in truth, talking about your goals can sometimes rob you of the energy you need to achieve them. You spend your energy selling a vision instead of building it. You get addicted to the praise of potential, not the power of progress, and praise for potential is dangerous. It feels like achievement, but it's not. It's just noise, empty calories for the ego. Success isn't something you advertise, it's something you earn. Every rep you do at the gym when no one's around, every page you write before the sun comes up, every extra hour you work when others are relaxing, every risk you take without asking for permission, every decision you make that prioritizes growth over comfort. That's what builds success. Quiet, steady, sometimes painful effort. The kind that doesn't get likes, the kind that doesn't trend, but the kind that counts, because what you're really doing when you work in silence is building momentum. You're collecting wins, you're sharpening your edge, you're setting a trap for the world. So when you arrive, they're not ready. Because while they were watching the loud ones, the showboats, the big talkers, you were preparing. And now that preparation is power. There's also freedom in silence, freedom from judgment, freedom from the need to justify your path. When you stop telling the world everything, you stop inviting everyone's opinion. You give yourself room to fail privately, which is where real growth happens. You give yourself space to experiment, to stretch, to evolve without the pressure of performance. Working in silence doesn't mean you're hiding. It means you're choosing depth over display. You're not afraid of attention. You're just not dependent on it. You understand that applause doesn't build you, discipline does. And you're mature enough to delay recognition because you know the real prize isn't the credit. It's the capability. Think about the most impactful people in any field, those who came seemingly out of nowhere. One day they were just a name in the background, and the next they were everywhere. But what you didn't see was the years behind the curtain, the 10,000 hours, the countless failures, the moments they wanted to quit but didn't. They weren't waiting for validation. They were building something unshakable. Success that lasts doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't need hype. It needs patience. And when it finally reveals itself, it speaks so loud, you won't have to say a thing. Discipline isn't loud. It doesn't need a witness. It doesn't announce its arrival or beg for recognition. In fact, it thrives best when no one's looking, when the lights are off, when the room is quiet, and when the only voice you hear is the one inside your head telling you to keep going. That's where real discipline lives, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. We often associate success with hustle, ambition, and even charisma. But without discipline, none of those qualities have staying power. Discipline is what takes a fleeting spark and turns it into a burning fire. It's the structure beneath the surface, the repetition behind the results. It's what keeps you grounded when motivation fades. Because motivation will fade, it always does. That's why people who rely on it never make it far. But discipline, it's reliable. It shows up whether you feel like it or not. And here's the truth about discipline. It rarely looks impressive from the outside. No one sees you getting up at 5 a.m. to train. No one hears the audiobook you listen to while the rest of the world scrolls through distractions. No one notices the meals you skip out on to stay healthy, the events you decline to stay focused, the hours you pour into mastering a craft with zero guarantee of recognition, because discipline is invisible. But its results are not. In silence, you're free to fail. You're free to stumble, to adjust, to repeat without fear of judgment. Discipline in silence removes the pressure to perform. You're not working to impress anyone. You're working to improve yourself. There's a purity in that, a clarity. It becomes just you and the work. No ego, no showmanship, no audience. And that's where the real growth happens. You start to develop something most people never find: self-trust. You begin to believe in yourself, not because someone else cheered you on, but because you've kept promises to yourself that no one knew about. You've shown up when no one asked you to. You've done the hard things without any external reward. That kind of discipline changes your identity. It rewires your self-image. You no longer wonder if you're capable. You know you are, because you've done the work in silence, again and again. And the beauty of silent discipline is that it compounds. Each time you choose to do the work, even when it's inconvenient, you add another brick to the foundation. Each small choice builds on the last. Over time, you create a structure so solid, it becomes unshakable. Others will only see the finished product, the skills, the results, the confidence. But you'll know what it took to get there. You'll know about the grind that no one clapped for. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lack consistency, and consistency is born from discipline. The person who wins isn't always the fastest, or the smartest, or even the most gifted. It's the one who stays the course. The one who's willing to keep showing up when it's boring, when it's hard, when it feels like nothing is happening. Discipline teaches you how to keep moving without external validation. And let's be honest, silence can be uncomfortable. It can feel lonely, but that discomfort is where the transformation happens. It forces you to rely on internal drivers. It forces you to own your goals, your actions, and your standards. There's no one to blame when you fall short, and no one to impress when you succeed. It's just you and the work. And that's exactly where you want to be if you're serious about leveling up. Every great achievement was preceded by a long season of discipline, the kind that's not glamorous, the kind that doesn't trend, the kind that most people don't have the patience for. But if you can stay in that space, if you can embrace the silence, stay loyal to the process, and keep stacking disciplined decisions day after day, you build something unbreakable inside yourself. There's a moment in every journey when words stop being enough. When talking about what you're going to do, who you're going to become, and what you're capable of doing simply doesn't carry weight anymore. That's the point where action becomes your only language. That's when you realize that the most powerful voice you will ever have is the one that comes from your results. Let your work speak, because it will say more about you than any promise, post, or pitch ever could. In a time when people are addicted to showing progress before they've made it, to narrating every intention before they've executed anything, choosing to stay quiet and produce is an act of strength. It shows maturity. It shows that you understand something deeper. People can argue with opinions, but they can't argue with results. They can doubt your words, but they can't deny your proof. When your work speaks, it builds credibility that no speech ever can. A person who walks into a room and doesn't have to say a word, but whose reputation arrives before they do. That's the person who has earned respect through consistency, sacrifice, and results. That's the person who chose to show rather than tell. Letting your work speak means becoming obsessed with what you're building, not how you're being perceived. It means trading ego for excellence. You don't need everyone to know what you're working on. You don't need applause every step of the way. What you need is to keep doing the reps. Keep refining your craft. Keep getting better in silence until the quality of what you've built is too loud to be ignored. Most people waste time trying to look successful before they are successful. They invest energy in trying to be seen when they should be investing that same energy in becoming better. And while they're busy crafting the image of achievement, someone else is putting in the work that leads to actual achievement. That's the difference between noise and impact. Noise is temporary, impact is permanent. And impact only comes from work that's been done, not talked about. Letting your work speak also removes you from the need to defend yourself. You don't have to prove anything to anyone when your actions already prove everything. You don't have to respond to critics or chase validation. Your work answers every question. Your work becomes the evidence. The people who doubted you, underestimated you, ignored you, when they finally see what you've built, they won't have anything left to say. Because results silence doubt. And here's the beautiful part. When your work speaks, it builds a legacy. Long after the noise fades, after the conversations stop, what you've built will remain. It will continue to speak for you. It will tell a story of resilience, of commitment, of growth, and of patience. It will speak of the nights you worked alone, the days you kept going despite setbacks, the moments you could have quit but didn't. You also start to notice something interesting when your work speaks. The right people start paying attention. The people who matter, investors, clients, partners, mentors, they're not impressed by noise. They're drawn to substance. They recognize the language of real work. They're not interested in potential. They want performance. And when you've put in the effort, when you've delivered consistently, you don't have to chase those people. They'll come to you because your results will speak a language they understand and respect. Letting your work speak requires patience, and patience is rare in a culture that celebrates instant success. But real success isn't instant. It's cumulative, it's slow, it's often invisible at first, and that's why so few people experience it. They give up too early because they don't get immediate recognition. But if you can hold the line, if you can keep putting in the work when no one notices, if you can stay locked in when others are distracted by attention, your time will come. And when it does, you won't have to say a thing. Because your work will speak in a voice that can't be ignored, and that voice will echo far louder than any words ever could. The spotlight is tempting. It offers immediate validation, instant recognition, and the illusion of significance. It tells you that if people are watching, then what you're doing must be important. But the spotlight is just that, an illusion. It's a temporary beam of attention that fades just as quickly as it appears. What matters more than stepping into the spotlight is building something that earns you the stage. And to do that, you need to focus on the work, not the attention. You need to tune out the noise and stay locked in on the process. There's a major difference between chasing visibility and creating value. The spotlight draws people who crave to be seen, but the stage is reserved for those who have done the work to be heard. The spotlight is available to anyone who can spark a moment. The stage, however, is earned by those who can build something that lasts. If you spend your energy trying to be seen, you'll miss the time you need to become someone worth noticing. Because what truly matters isn't how many people are watching you. It's what you've built when no one was. Every stage worth standing on is built with invisible effort. the preparation, the pain, the growth, the rejection, the repetition. None of that happens in the spotlight. That happens in solitude, in silence. When you're grinding behind the scenes, when you're still unknown, when there's no guarantee that anyone will ever care, that's when the foundation is laid. That's where character is forged. The stage doesn't care how loud your voice is if you haven't put in the work to back it up. The people who last in any field, the ones who don't just arrive but stay, are the ones who didn't rush to be noticed. They were too busy becoming better. They understood that recognition is a byproduct, not a goal. They didn't need approval to keep going. They were fueled by purpose, not applause. And when the moment came for them to step into the spotlight, they were ready, not because they rehearsed their speech, but because they lived the story. The spotlight can become a trap. It can distract you from what matters. It can make you perform instead of progress. When you're always thinking about how something looks, you stop focusing on how it works. You shift your energy from improving to impressing, and that's when growth stalls. That's when people plateau, because they start curating instead of creating. They become addicted to the image of success and lose the substance that makes it real. Earning the stage means putting in work long before the audience arrives. It means mastering your craft when no one knows your name. It means sacrificing the comfort of being seen now for the impact of being respected later. There is no shortcut to that kind of credibility. You can't fake it. You can't borrow it. You have to build it brick by brick with discipline, consistency, and humility. You have to resist the urge to show up before you're ready just to say you've arrived. Because when you step onto the stage unprepared, the spotlight becomes an interrogation, not a reward. It's not that you should fear being seen. Visibility isn't the enemy, but chasing it before you've done the work will leave you exposed. The spotlight magnifies whatever's there, so if you haven't developed depth, if you haven't done the hard internal work, the cracks will show. But when you've earned the stage, when your foundation is strong, the spotlight doesn't intimidate you. It simply reveals the strength you've already built. You don't have to advertise your journey every step of the way. You don't need to explain yourself to people who haven't earned the right to hear your story. Stay focused, stay humble, let your discipline do the talking. While others seek attention, you're developing authenticity. While others rush to be known, you're building something worth remembering. When you ignore the spotlight and focus on the real work, the day will come when you're not just invited to the stage you'll own it. Talk is cheap. Promises are easy to make. They require no sacrifice, no risk, no sweat. Anyone can declare what they're going to do. Anyone can say, just wait and see. But only a few are willing to actually stay the course long enough to deliver something that makes people stop and say, I didn't see that coming. That kind of reaction doesn't come from noise. It doesn't come from hype. It comes from undeniable proof. Proof that you've been putting in the work, long before anyone noticed, long before anyone believed. You don't need to announce what you're going to build if you're really building it. The strongest moves are made in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're focused. When your energy goes into execution instead of explanation, the results speak for themselves. And when they speak, they don't whisper. They hit like a shockwave. That's what happens when people underestimate you for so long that they stop paying attention. And then suddenly you're everywhere, not because you asked for attention, but because what you've done is too big to ignore. Promises give people expectations. Proof gives them clarity. People will hold you to every word you say, but they'll never forget what you did. That's why it's smarter to stay silent during the build and loud with the results. The problem with constantly talking about your plans is that it creates a false sense of progress. It tricks your mind into thinking that sharing a vision is the same as achieving it, but it's not. It's just a delay tactic dressed up as ambition. It takes courage to keep your head down and resist the urge to prove something prematurely. Real proof doesn't need defending. It doesn't need validation. It's self-evident. A person in shape doesn't have to say they've been working out. You can see it. A business that's thriving doesn't have to convince people it shows in the numbers. A creator doesn't need to explain their process when the product stands on its own. When you have proof, you don't chase respect, it finds you. The people who used to doubt you go quiet, not because you argued harder, but because you gave them nothing left to say. The best part about shocking people with proof is that it doesn't rely on timing, luck, or approval. It's the product of steady work, built away from the noise. There's no announcement for it. There's no build-up. It just drops, and when it does, it rewrites the narrative. People start asking questions. They want to know how you did it, where you came from, what they missed. That's when you realize how powerful quiet progress really is. It doesn't just lead to success. It creates moments. Moments that turn heads, shift conversations, and change how people see you forever. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who was silent the longest, the one who watched while others bragged, the one who kept working while others were busy being seen. When that person finally steps forward, they don't come with promises. They come with receipts, evidence. Mastery, and mastery, unlike talent or charm, can't be faked. It's either there or it's not. You either put in the time or you didn't. And when you have, the results are impossible to ignore. You also build something deeper when you shock with proof instead of promises. You build integrity. You develop a reputation for being the kind of person who doesn't need to talk about what they're going to do because they're too busy doing it. That kind of reputation doesn't just earn you respect, it earns you trust, and trust is currency in any industry, any field, any relationship. When people know you deliver, they'll stop questioning your path and start betting on your outcome. There's something incredibly satisfying about doing exactly what you said you would, without ever having said it. Watching people realize they underestimated you, watching their expectations collapse under the weight of your execution. Watching their opinions shift, not because you argued your case, but because your results made it impossible not to believe. That's not arrogance. That's arrival. That's what happens when the grind is real, the sacrifice is real, and the commitment never broke. Even when no one was watching, success doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't demand attention. It waits. Patiently, quietly, it builds in the background, brick by brick, while the world is distracted by noise. And then, when it's ready, it arrives without warning, but with power no one can ignore. This journey isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about showing up when it's inconvenient, staying disciplined when it's thankless, and keeping your vision sharp when no one else can see it. It's about choosing focus over attention, consistency over comfort, and proof over promises. Let them watch the loud ones. Let them cheer for the performers. While they look for sparks, you build the fire, because one day your silence will erupt into something undeniable, something earned, something unstoppable. Work hard in silence. Shock them with everything they never saw coming.